So as you know, Bernardo was quietly transferred on May 29th from a high security prison in Ontario to a medium security prison in Quebec, and that was La Casa. A year ago, he applied to be transferred to Bath Institution. A security review found that he met the bar for transfer. So that means that he was meeting the requirements. He was sort of more or less being a good boy. And he was qualified to move to a medium security. But it was overridden just because of who he was and the stir it would cause with the public. So Bernardo went on then to work with senior officials at Millhaven facility where he was housed after Kingston Penitentiary, to develop an integration plan, and was fully integrated within the prison by July 2022. So what they did was, the plan was to integrate him into prison population slowly. So he lived in solitary confinement for the most part. So after that integration process, counseling, whatnot, he successfully applied to be moved to La Casa, where he is right now, the medium security institution in Quebec. This facility offers treatment for sex offenders in particular, and also houses other high-profile sexual offenders. Last July until the transfer in May, there were no documented incidents or behavioral concerns reported by staff. So now we're going to get into the press conference that was conducted 2 weeks ago by the Corrections Commissioner. And her name is Ann Kelly. You might have seen the clip on the news with the press conference. The woman who was speaking, that's Ann Kelly. And due to the public outrage about it, and by request of the victim's family, a review committee had been assembled in June. So I dug a little bit into the practices of transferring prisoners between facilities, and found that in regards to inmate transfers from maximum to medium, requires a victim or victim's family notification the day of the transfer, which was actually the case here with Bernardo. Because he moved from max to medium, the families, the victims, whomever else, only had to be notified that day. And apparently they were notified that morning. So far, we are on par with the requirements. So let's say a prisoner was transferred from a medium security to a minimum security. Then that would require much more notification to victims and victims' family and whomever else, and maybe even notification to the public. I guess that's case by case. So Ann Kelly, the commissioner, emphasized that federal corrections is responsible for managing inmates and must make decisions based on law rather than on how society feels about a particular offender. Ann Kelly also went on to say, the punishment is the sentence, and he was given the harshest sentence possible in the Canadian criminal justice system. And also, I just wanted to make a note here. We touched on it a little bit on the last Bernardo podcast, or the last update. Politicians do not determine prison terms in this country. The correctional system in Canada is a complete independent entity. So there is nothing that Trudeau could say. There is nothing that Doug Ford could do. Leader of the Conservative Party, Poilievre, had a lot of strong feelings about Bernardo being moved to Quebec in particular. But again, there's nothing that the politicians can really say, and it's not their responsibility. The only thing that the government can do at this time is to pass legislation regarding maybe, the movement of prisoners and just the particulars for that sort of thing. And they're going to base it on the Bernardo case, definitely. This is definitely going to set some precedents. So in spite of the protest by the victims' families, their lawyer, and the public, Bernardo will remain at La Casa medium security. There's no overturning this decision. This decision was based on his qualifications to go to a somewhat lesser secure facility. Although La Casa, from what I've seen, still has, armed guards and high fences and everything else. So it's quite similar to maximum security prison. I think the difference probably is maybe the sort of programs that are offered in the prison. And as I mentioned before, La Casa in particular is for sexual offenders. Paul Bernardo has a parole board hearing in November of this year. I imagine that it's probably going to have something to do with day parole. He definitely will not that he won't be allowed to, but I feel like the only thing he has a chance at, maybe, is a day parole. Timothy Danson, who is a lawyer for the victims' families, has noted that at multiple parole board hearings up until 2021, it was concluded that Bernardo still had deviant sexual inclinations, narcissistic tendencies, and psychopathic behaviors. So, we can see it, I'm sure. I watched a few interviews actually with Paul Bernardo conducted in the past few years. And to hear him talk, he's talking about, I don't know, almost seems like he's talking about a whole other person. He really feels like he is grown and changed. He says, I'm working out. I'm a Christian now. As a matter of fact, I believe it was in 2014 where he was almost married. A woman who was 30 years old at the time, Ontario woman, had sent Bernardo a Bible the year before this. So it would have been in 2013. And they start exchanging letters and then photographs. She had even mentioned in some of these letters that she believed that he was innocent, which, that happens. You see that with a lot of serial killers. They have just women just throwing themselves at them for some reason, I guess. But anyway, the marriage ended up not happening. She hid it from her family, her relationship with Bernardo, and I think it was her father that found out, and he was like, are you seriously, you do not want to marry Paul Bernardo? He's so hated. Why would you do this? So the marriage didn't happen. He's even talking a little bit about why he committed these crimes, and he was saying because he has low self-esteem. He admits that he has a problem with his sexuality, zero confidence. I guess the only way that he felt that he could probably get a woman was to be forceful upon the woman. So, whatever he says, that's between him and the psychiatrist or the psychologist. We're going to have to see what happens after the next parole board hearing. Personally, I think that he's really just, to put it plainly, maybe a sympathetic parole board decision away from being released, or at least getting day parole. I mean, I'm not saying he's earned it or that he deserves it, but he's earned his way into a medium security. He's currently getting therapies and whatnot. So does he have a chance at being paroled? Day parole? Maybe. Anyway, I just wanted to make sure that we were caught up with our Bernardo news, and we are definitely watching this to see what happens. It's a pretty big deal within the legal community, and I think it's important for everyone to really to pay attention here. Some big changes are coming. So thank you very much for joining me for this short chat, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.